Hello and welcome to another SkaredCast tactical video. Today, the final video of the Dark Eldar Codex series, Formation and Special Rules. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to another SkaredCast tactical video. Today, we're looking at video 24 that looks at the Dark Eldar special rules and formation in the new Dark Eldar Codex. Then we will look at the formation and rules in the Coven book, but before that, let's dive right in. For a list of all the other videos in the tactical playlist, check the description down below for a link. Now this of course will be a two-part series. First, we'll look at the special rules of the Dark Eldar within the new Codex and how they relate to the game. And secondly, the formation that is given in the book itself and a few different tactical uses. So, let's get started. The Dark Eldar are a fast race. Their speed and maneuverability is bar none, but they do lack in survivability. Now, anything that is survivable within the book, namely the Coven units, do lack the speed and maneuverability of the Dark Eldar army as a whole. So, what makes the Dark Eldar army unique from the rest of the 40k universe? Let's get right in. So, the Dark Eldar army has a variety of different special rules. Now, some of the units in the army are affected by combat drugs, namely Hellions, Reaver jet bikes, witches, that sort of unit. And the fluff behind that is, although drugs drastically shorten the life expectancy of the user, chemical stimulants are widely used to heighten combat performance. So after determining Warlord traits in the game, but before you deploy, you roll a d6 and consult this chart, and that is the bonus that any unit that has that special rule in the army will get. It's either +1 attack, +1 strength, +1 initiative, +1 toughness, +1 weapon skill, or +1 leadership. They all give you a sort of stats boost. So let's go one on one and see which ones I think are the most useful. +1 attack, I think, is the all-round most useful because most of the units that have combat drugs want to be in close combat. So having +1 attack is just a generic thing that helps against everyone. That one and the next one, which is +1 strength, being at a base strength 4, the same as a Space Marine, which then on turn 4 becomes Furious Charge. And therefore Eve comes up to strength 5 on the charge. Now that is not to be overlooked, because normally Dark Eldar in combat, unless you have a poison weapon, you're wounding on 5s or 4s if you're strength 3. +1 initiative, that's probably the least important of the 6 choices, because most units that have combat drugs have initiative 6, like Hellions or Witches. So they don't require the initiative against a lot of different opponents. But it can be handy in the off chance that you're fighting high initiative units like the new Blood Angels with the Detachment or supported by Corbulo, or you have characters and you want your witches to try and take them out in combat in a challenge before getting smacked down themselves. +1 toughness, Painbringer, hugely amazing for Reaver jet bikes, making them toughness 5. And for witches and Hellions, it means that only strength 8 and higher weaponry will be negating their feel no pain from the power from pain, which we'll talk about in a second. And this is very useful as well, meaning they're a lot more survivable, sort of like racks, which you don't see very often. The +1 weapon skill isn't as useful as it could be. It provides more hits in combat, and against elite units it's going to make them harder to be hit, but don't rely on it that much. And last but not least, Splinter Mind, +1 leadership. Useful if your enemy is going to make you fall back a lot. Very useful if you didn't buy a sergeant. Not so useful if you did buy a sergeant of sorts. So that is the combat drug dynamic. Now, another dynamic is the power from pain dynamic. Now this changes between the Dark Eldar book and the Coven book. We'll look at the Coven book in a different video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But the power from pain is really something that changes it drastically. At the start of each game turn, you just you just consult the chart and see what rule affects every single model with this special rule. So on turn 1 there is nothing special. On turn 2, every single unit with the power from pain special rule gets feel no pain 6+. Turn 3, they just have feel no pain, so 5+. On turn 4, note these are cumulative, they get feel no pain and gain furious charge. On turn 5, they have feel no pain, they have furious charge, and they gain fearless. And on turn 6 and above, they gain feel no pain, furious charge, fearless, and rage, which makes them very, very good on the charge. This is really cool. It means that the small elite army of the Dark Eldar gets better as the game goes. Now, it's important to note, in many years of playing Dark Eldar, I have found that Dark Eldar do most of their damage early in the game, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. And it's the enemy's prerogative to come back from the initial hit. If they can win the war of attrition later in the game, the Dark Eldar have a very hard time coming back against a resilient foe that can do enough damage. This chart helps mitigate that. Feel no pain starting turn 2 and then becoming regular feel no pain turn 3 really helps soften the blow when you're taking casualties from light weapons like bolters and las guns, and really only makes you worry about the higher strength weaponry or anything the Eldar army has. Furious Charge makes you very good at hitting harder later in the game, so your units will be depleting, but the rate at which the units do damage will be higher if continue to be on the offensive. And Fearless by turn 5 means that none of your units will be running away, which means you can afford to, fall back or, run away turn 4 or go to ground turn 4, if you'll have the bottom of the turn, and then turn 5, boop, all your guys get back up, which means that they can act normally for being fearless, which, it can come to different tactical uses, but it can be very handy. Or if you have all of a sudden fearless Dark Eldar model and you have a big unit of allies and you want to run him in there to make them fearless so that they can charge in and sell themselves dearly for the end of the game. Fantastic. And last but not least, turn 6+, won't always get to see this happen, but Rage, which not only increases their close combat potential but also their damage output, making Dark Eldar units, as the games continue, to be tougher and stronger and to hit harder even though their numbers dwindle. I think that this helps mitigate the war of attrition. But be smart. A Dark Eldar is not a Space Marine. They are not going to be as tough. So, use this smartly and be aware of the fact that it exists, and it will make your army better over the long run of the game. Last but not least, we have the specific Warlord traits. Now, 6 different Warlord traits. A lot of folks use the strategic trait table in the main rulebook. This table, the strategic trait table, is a very good table. So, if you're going to a tournament, yes, that is recommended. Now, if you can pick your Warlord trait, as per your gaming group or within the tournament environment, I would always pick from the Dark Eldar Warlord trait table, and I would pick Labyrinthine Cunning, but we'll get to that in a second. They're not bad, these Warlord traits, and I really think that they can come into their own if used effectively. Warlord traits, the first one is Ancient Evil. All friendly units within 12 inches that have the Dark Eldar faction cause fear. Can be useful against a lot of opponents, but against things like demons or Space Marines or anything that's fearless, it's pointless. So if you're running a detachment, make sure you re-roll that one. Labyrinthine Cunning's number 2. You can re-roll the dice when attempting to seize the initiative, determine if night fighting is in effect, and when you make reserve rolls. That one is huge. It is amazing. Rerolling reserve rolls alone, but rerolling night fight, I want it to be night fight. Roll. Oh, it didn't happen again. Roll again. Oh, look at that. It's night fight. Take that, all my army stealth now. Perfect. I love that. And reroll to seize the initiative, which is awesome too. If you're fighting a nasty opponent and you want to try and get the first turn so that you can do as much damage as you can before he blasts you off the table, it's phenomenal. So, out of all those, my favourite. Number 3 is Rage for the Warlord, which is good until you hit turn 6 and then he gets Rage anyway. So it means that you want to get him in combat quick and use that effectively. Hatred Eternal means hatred. That can be really good. Rerolling misses in combat is fantastic. So especially if your Warlord is armed for combat, it's very useful to get him in the challenges, go killing units or lots of models to get lots of hits in. Fantastic. Blood Dancer, +1 weapon skill. Lackluster. If you're running a Succubus as your Warlord, she goes up to an incredible ballistics weapon skill 9, which means that a lot of enemy are attacking her and hitting her on 5+ in combat, which can be really useful because she has low toughness and it might help her survive longer. But other than that, it's the only real reason I could see that being used. And number 6 is Towering Arrogance. All friendly units within 12 inches are fearless. Has its pros and its cons. I like going to ground if I need to. Being fearless prevents that. You become fearless turn 5 anyway. So out of all of these, I like number 2 the best. And if you have one that you like the most, let me know down in the comments below. Last but not least, we have the Realspace Raiders Detachment and the formation within the book itself. Now, in 7th edition, you can make an army of various detachments, whether it's a combined arms detachment from the main book, whether it's an allied detachment attached to a detachment, whether it's a formation, which is a detachment in and of itself, or any of the special detachments that have been released in any of the new books. So what makes this detachment unique from the one in the main rulebook? Well, first of all, you lose objectives secured. So your troops won't contest against objective secured troops, or won't score against non-objective secured troops. So it is pretty much the exact same thing, except that you have to take 1 fast attack choice, and you can have up to 6 fast attack choices in the army. So this is pretty cool. It means that you can have 6 Razorwing jet fighters, or 6 unit of Scourge, or 6 empty Venoms. Yes, that's right, 6 empty Venoms. In an army of 1500 points, using this detachment, min-maxing everything, you can have an incredible amount of Venoms. Archon with a Venom, Archon with a Venom. Guess what? 2 Archons, so 2 Courts of the Archon with Venoms. Take like a 10-point Lamian or something. 6 troop choices with Venoms, 6 fast attack choice Venoms that don't have to have a unit attached to them. That's 12, 13, 14, 16 Venoms. Do the math. Nasty. Okay, so if this detachment is your primary detachment, you can re-roll your Warlord trait if it's from the Dark Eldar detachment, Dark Eldar Warlord traits. Useful. And Hunt from the Shadows. During the entire first game turn, And during any turn in which the night fighting rules are in effect, all troops from this detachment have a 5+ cover save, and all other units have a 6+ cover save. So it basically gives it gives +2 to the cover saves, like a 5+ cover save, which means in night fight your raiders and venoms just standing still have a 4+ cover save, which means they wouldn't have to jink if they got shot at and it wasn't turn 1, because their jink save would be the same. If it's night fight, of course, they, the night fighting rules, if you have like a Corsair ally, can make it night fighting in another turn that isn't just the first, that kind of helps too. And so it really adds a bit of survivability, just the first turn. Nothing crazy, but you take this detachment for the fast attack choices, not for that specific special rule. So I like it. I've used it a couple of times. Let me know if you've had more experience with it. I prefer objective secured troops because it really helps in objective-based missions and in anything that has objectives. And, objective secure is amazing, so I really like it. But if you're not a fan of it, then let me know down below in the description. I'd love to hear what you think. Last but not least, the Dark Eldar Kabalite Raiding Party. This is a specific Dark Eldar formation. When a Kabalite raiding party attacks a world in real space, they do not go in search of territorial conquest, nor do they seek to defeat the entire strength of a world they attack. They fight not to enforce an ideology or defend an endangered realm, but to inflict as much suffering and terror as they possibly can before retreating to the Dark City with a screaming bounty of slaves clutched in their merciless grasp. These forces will be primarily composed of Kabalite warriors, competitive bands of killers who form the backbone of their raid, born into battle on sleek raiders and blade-swift venoms. These black-hearted pirates will fight like demons to win the greatest glory for themselves and see friend and foe alike humbled at their feet. At the head of every Kabalite raiding party stands an Archon, their ancient cunning and infinite cruelty bent towards outwitting the foe at every turn. Archons strive to ensure that their fragile forces retain the element of surprise for as long as possible, striking from the shadows and exploiting every iota of speed and lethality their followers possess to ensure their prey is felled before they can even recognize the danger. Meanwhile, Kabalites who feel the pitiless eyes of their master and his monstrous court upon them will fight all the harder, channeling the death agonies of their foe to ever greater atrocities until the battlefield rings with the screams of the damned and the dying. Typically, raiding parties of this sort will be supported by specialist elements within the Cabal's own ranks, such as the kill-hungry crews of the Ravager gunships, and by heartless Comorite mercenary bands such as the Incubi of the Shrines or the Scourges of the highest spires. Taken as a whole, what a Kabalite raiding party lacks in resilience and survivability, it more than makes up for in speed and lethality. The Kabalites strike without warning, wreaking havoc amongst the unprepared foe before vanishing once more into the webway. Typically, they leave little but butchered corpses and terrified madmen at their wake. Pray that they will take you not alive. That's kind of cool. It pretty much describes the entire Dark Eldar book.
And you can kind of play this is kind of like a collector's formation. So it's not exactly competitive, but if you're wanting to collect a Dark Eldar force, not only does it offer the opportunity for that, but it really gives you some cool special rules. It consists of 1 Archon, 1 Court of the Archon, a unit of Incubi, a Ravager, 6 units of Kabalite warriors, 1 unit of Scourge, and a unit of Hellions. Now, they all must take dedicated transports, either a Raider or a Venom, if they have the choice to do so. The Archon can choose whether or not he wants to take one, because he can just join, the Incubi or the Court of the Archon or whatnot. So there's 3 special rules. 1 is the Architect of Agony. If the Archon in this formation is the Warlord and he is alive, all units get the Power from Pain rule and add +1 to the turn. So they're starting on turn 2, which means they all start with a Feel of Pain. They'll become fearless on turn 4. They have regular Feel of Pain on turn 2. This is really helpful. And it's cumulative with things like the Homunculus's Master of Pain rule, the Agonizing from the Animus Vitae that increases the entire army's power from pain. So there's ways to modify it. This is one of them. And the Hunt, and it's only units in the formation that get benefited from this. Hunt from the Shadows is the same thing as the Detachment rule. So all troops on the first turn get a 5+ cover save, and anything else gets a 6+ cover save, even in the open. So if it's night fighting, it's kind of cool because they have a 4+, or if they have night shields with the stealth that's again given from that, which can be kind of handy on especially Kabalite Raiders, which are troops. And Realspace Raider. If the formation is your primary detachment, then your Warlord can reroll his Warlord trait. Have I used this formation? No. Have I built an army around this formation on paper? Yes. I kind of like it. Forces you to use a variety of different units, but you have to rely on 1 Ravager, and you have to take Hellions, and you have to take, Scourge, which are good. You have to take Incubi and a Court of the Archon. So you have to take everything you can use, but it would take a true general to really make them all click and really use them effectively. If you wanted to run that particular formation, I'd run an Archon with the Animus Vitae to give everybody in the formation +2 to the Power from Pain. And I would not hesitate to take lots of Kabalite warriors and really focus it on the Kabalites. And use the Scourge with Haywire Blasters to kill tanks together with the Ravager. The Hellions as a screening disruption unit to run up and just take bullets for the entire army. And then, of course, the Incubi and the Court of the Archon to provide some powerful punch in combat later in the game. Or if you're running Slith, then a lot of shooting and resiliency with the Slith, which are the snake dudes. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this tactical video. Stay tuned for the next one. Check out down below for a link to the description of all the different tactical videos in the playlist, because there's a whole one for each unit. The next one will be the Coven formations. There's a lot in there, and there's special rules. I'm on a quest for 2015 to hit 8,000 subscribers. So if you like the content, show your support by clicking the subscribe button. Like, share, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks a lot sharing this knowledge. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. This is Skari, your grateful host, out.